Good day everyone, my name is Shaba the tutor. In today's video I'm going to be talking about what happens during the process of inhalation and exhalation. Now, before I dwell into the notes that I've written down here, firstly I need you to understand how air pressure works, or how atmospheric pressure works. Now remember, air is what is made up of what? Of gases, and gases always move from what? An area of what? Of a high concentration to an area of what? Of lower concentration. Now even here, when we talk about the air pressure will always move from a high pressure to what? To a lower pressure. Now, the summary of the processes of what? Inhalation and exhalation is that during inhalation, whatever that happens with the diaphragm, intercostal muscles, and the interpleural pressure will what? Will decrease the pressure that is within your lungs. Therefore, that pressure that is within your lungs will be lower than the pressure that is outside. Therefore, because pressure will move from what? A high pressure to what? To a low pressure. Therefore, air will rush into your lungs, trying to what? To equalize the pressure that is lower within what? Within your lungs. The same as during exhalation. Whatever that happens during exhalation is that during exhalation, there will be what? More pressure within what? Within your lungs, and lower pressure with, on the outside. Therefore, the pressure will move from what? Where there is high pressure to what? To a lower pressure. Are we together? Now, okay, let's continue. Now, during inhalation, you have to talk about, when you ask the question of what happens during inhalation, you're supposed to talk about the diaphragm, the intercostal muscles, and what? And the interpleural what? Pressure. Now, what happens with the diaphragm? What happens with the diaphragm is that it will contract and flatten, and what? And also what? Flatten. Increasing what? The volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity. Remember, when we're talking about the thoracic cavity, we're also talking about the rib cage. I'm talking about the rib cage and everything there. Now, what do they mean when they say the diaphragm contracts and flatten? Therefore, as a result, increasing what? The volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity. Now, let's say, remember, the diaphragm is what? It's a membrane or a wall that separates what? The thoracic cavity and what? And your abdominal cavity. Let's say this is your body. I'm not good at drawing. Let's say this is your body. Now, before inhalation, this layer of what, or which is called what? The diaphragm, will have been raised. Initially, it will be something like this. Therefore, as you inhale, this diaphragm is going to what? It's going to flatten and what? And contract and become like this. Therefore, it will increase what? The volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity here. If it is like this, let's say this was your body. Do you see where it being raised will decrease what? Will decrease the volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity. But when it flattens, it will decrease what? It will increase. It will increase what? It will increase the what? The volume. Therefore, when the volume increases, that will also what? That will cause what? A low pressure to occur inside what? Inside the thoracic cavity. Are we together? Now, let's continue. The saying what? The intercostal muscles will what? Will contract. Therefore, as a result, lifting what? The ribs upwards and what? And outwards. Remember, the intercostal muscles are what? The muscles that are between what? Between your ribs. Can you see if like you try to inhale right now and say, what happens to your what? To your ribs? Your ribs will what? Are expanding. They are what? They are moving upwards and what? And outwards. The ribs are not the ones that are moving. It's the intercostal muscles, which are the muscles that are between what? The ribs. That will cause what? The ribs to what? To expand. Therefore, increasing the volume that is inside what? That is inside your thoracic cavity. And once the volume increases, that means so the pressure inside there is going to what? It's going to what? It's going to decrease. When the volume decreases, the pressure does what? It decreases. Are we together? Now we move to what? To the interpleural pressure. The interpleural pressure, remember, it is the pressure that is within the pleura. The pleura is a membrane that is lining what? That is lining the lungs, protecting the lungs from crossing friction with what? With your ribs. Now they say what? The interpleural pressure decreases, causing what? A decrease in pressure in the lungs. Now, this interpleural pressure, we're saying what? It's what? It's found inside what? Inside the membrane. Let's say this is the membrane. It is found inside what? Inside the membrane. Now, as you inhale, remember the rib cage is also what? The rib cage is expanding, increasing what? The volume. Now, even with this membrane, the same thing is occurring. Let's say this was an elastic band, and this elastic band during inhalation stretches. Now, as it stretches, it creates what? It creates an increase in volume inside this. Therefore, the pressure inside will what? Will decrease, causing also a decrease in what? A decrease in pressure in what? In the lungs. Now, this is what I said about the atmospheric pressure. Listen, as a result of these 3 points, atmospheric pressure is now greater than what? The pressure within the lungs. Therefore, air rushes into the lungs via the nostrils or what? Or the mouth. Now, as a result of this, three structures. These 3 structures, they are increasing what? They're increasing the volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity. And when the volume increases, the pressure does what? It decreases. Now, as a result, the pressure now that is inside the thoracic cavity, or that is inside the lungs, is now lower compared to what? To the pressure that is what? That is outside, which is what? Which is called the atmospheric pressure. Now, as a result, the air pressure will want to move from what? From a high pressure, which is the outside, to what? To a low pressure, which is the inside. That's why air now rushes into what? Into the mouth, into the lungs via the nostrils or what? Or the mouth. Now, let's move to what happens during exhalation. Now, what happens is just the opposite of what was happening during inhalation. Now, the diaphragm now will what? Will relax and what? Become what? Raised. Remember during inhalation, it was what? It was constricting. Now it will what? It will relax and become what? Become raised, decreasing what? The volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity. This is what I've just tried to explain there. It will become what? Raised. Now when the diaphragm is what? It is flat and it has constructed. The volume within the thoracic cavity increases, but once becomes what? Raised, it decreases what? It decreases the volume that is inside what? The thoracic cavity. Therefore, decreasing, and when the volume decreases, the pressure will what? Will increase. Now, let's see what happens with the intercostal muscles. The intercostal muscles will also relax, lowering the rib cage to become smaller. Therefore, volume decreases. The intercostal muscles, they are saying they are going to be what? They are going to relax. When they relax, they are going to lower the what? The rib cage. Remember, during inhalation, they would have what? Raised the rib cage to upwards and what? And outwards. Now, during exhalation, they what? They lower the rib cage to become what? Smaller. And when they become smaller, the volume will what? Will decrease. Therefore, the pressure inside will what? Will increase. Let's see what happens with the interpleural pressure. The interpleural pressure increases, causing what? An increase in pressure in the lungs. Now, the pressure that is found inside the pleura, now, let's say it has stretched. Now, when it reduces in size and becomes smaller, it increases what? The pressure now will become what? It will increase. This is the same as when like you have, let's say, what do I have here that I can make an example? Okay, let's say you have a plastic. Let's say you have a plastic like this one. Now, as the plastic will what? Shrinks in size. Look what happens. Look what happens. The pressure inside the plastic will what? Will increase. Therefore, this is the same the same thing that is also happening with what? With the interpleural what? With the interpleural pressure. The interpleural pressure will increase, causing what? An increase in pressure with what? Within what? Within the lungs. Now, we move to what? To the last point. As a result of this, the three things happening, the pressure in the lungs is now greater than the atmospheric pressure. Therefore, air is forced out of the nostrils or what? Or the mouth. Now, the pressure as a result of the processes that are happening, as a result of the diaphragm, as a result of the intercostal muscles, as a result of the interpleural pressure, these three things will what? Will decrease the volume of what? Of the thoracic cavity. Therefore, once the volume decreases, when the volume of something increases, let's say a container or anything or a plastic, as the volume decreases, the pressure that is going to be inside is going to what? Is going to increase. Just like this plastic, as I explained, as the volume decreases, look what happens to the pressure inside. It becomes what? More tighter and more tighter. Therefore, as a result, air will rush out of what? Of the lungs and go to what? To the outside. Because now the pressure within what? Within the lungs is greater than what? The atmospheric pressure. And air pressure will always move from what? From a high pressure to what? To a low pressure. Now, I think that explains everything. Let me know in the comment if there's something that you do not understand and require further explanations. Thank you.